Hello guys and welcome back to the Motor Recon podcast. I'm your host Adam. I'm joined again today by Rob. What we're going to do today is Rob's had a little bit of an idea of something he wants to discuss, which is something called the power war.
Yes.
Which is basically car manufacturers, as you all probably know, getting a bit silly with power and how he thinks it's going to end. So we're going to start out with that, and then what we're going to do is we're going to move on to another topic, which is a personal highlight of mine. What car would you drive around the world in, and then how would you spec it? So we've done two cars, and also why we'd choose either one of those.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. So I'm going to go through actually what we've ticked on the options and things like that. So I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
a bit silly. And also we're going to do why we picked what we picked. So I'll let you kick off then, straight off the bat, with the power war.
Yeah, so I did have an idea about this. So it's something that's been rattling around in my head for a little while now. And obviously, as everyone well knows, the power outputs that you're getting in relatively standard cars now are just getting, obviously the sporty end of things, just getting more and more extreme.
You can get hot hatches now with 400, if not more, horsepower.
Well, it's sort of like the new RS6, for example, is rolling out the factory with over 600 brake horsepower under it.
Yeah.
And we've discussed this in the previous podcast, and we have discussed this before, where you can't use 80% of that in the real world. It's just not feasible. So it's a case of, it's numbers for numbers' sakes.
Yeah, they're just doing it a game of top trumps against each other, aren't they, really?
Yeah. And I have a theory as to how all of this might end up ending, and it is to do with electric cars. So in last week's podcast, we discussed the Frankfurt Motor Show, and two of our highlights from that show were electric cars, the Volkswagen E-Up and the Porsche Taycan.
Yeah.
Now, just a recap on the Taycan. Obviously, it's got tremendous power under its belt. I don't know the exact brake horsepower figure, but it's significant. But the thing we levitated towards the most was its range, which even at the longest range that it's got is 270 miles.
Yeah.
And we commented on how compared to the Tesla Model S, which costs less, which is a relatively similar performance in a straight line at least, is down on range.
Yeah, and that's also a thing that sort of piqued my interest. When you brought this up, I was thinking, actually, I kind of agree with that. Because every time I've spoken to anybody about electric cars in some sense, other than some of the Tesla, like, aren't they rapid in a straight line?
Yeah.
Which is like, yes, they are.
Once you get over that.
Yeah, but they're just like, well, what? Everyone always complains like, well, what if I need to recharge and I'm on holiday, or they don't go far enough on a single charge or anything like that?
So here's my theory. Take a super saloon at the moment, an M5, for example.
Yeah.
And the person who might buy an M5, obviously they can only go a relatively short distance on a single tank of fuel compared to a car which has a smaller, more economical engine. But the inconvenience of filling that up again isn't so great.
No, it's 2 minutes of a job, isn't it? Bang,
Exactly.
pull in, fill up, pay, go.
And obviously the cost of filling up, obviously, if you can afford an M5, isn't so great, because it's a case of you have enough money to buy the car in the first place, so you should probably have enough to sort of finance the fuel needs of it. Compare that to the new Porsche Taycan, for example, which costs an awful lot of money new, but it can only do 270 miles on a single charge. In a petrol car, that wouldn't be a problem, because you can just go into a fuel station, 2 minutes, you're off. Not so much with an electric car, because it doesn't matter how rich you are, you're going to have to sit there for as long as it takes to charge it up, and you're still limited on where you can charge it up at the moment as well.
Yeah, like one thing I'd actually notice as well, which I'd just interject with, like even on the most powerful chargers you can get, like these superchargers, it's still like, oh well, you have to wait half an hour for 80% range, or in some cases like 15 minutes for, I don't know, an extra 150 miles of range, into some examples that we've read. And it's just like, then even the quickest possible way, like 15 minutes you sat there waiting around, while that's not the end of the world in terms of time, you still only get 150 miles, whereas for a third the time less, if not even less than that, you just quickly burn it up, and then you can get maybe another 400 or 500 miles in a petrol car.
Let's not forget, that is all assuming you can find the fastest and most rapid charging points.
They're not everywhere at the minute. Obviously, in future, I assume they're going to solve this problem.
Of course,
But they're not everywhere at the moment, so you might be stuck on a regular charger, which only will do maybe half the speed of charging, so you sat there for an hour or an hour and a half in some cases.
The truth is, you can roll up to your electric charging point, and honestly, it's a lucky dip as to what you might get.
Yeah. Now, Tesla do offer the feature in their car where you can find Tesla chargers, but if that's too far away...
It doesn't really help you, does it? And it still limits you. Again, doesn't matter how much money you have, you can't spend your way around these logistical problems. Yeah. So this will affect your sort of electric supercars like the Rimac Concept 2, the same as it'll affect someone in a Volkswagen e-Up.
Yeah.
Because this is just the logistics of charging points in the world right now. And let's not forget, we're assuming that you live in a country where the charging network has at least got some sort of facilities going on. So I have absolutely no idea what the electric charging network situation is like in India, for example.
Yeah.
Or indeed any other country around the world. Yeah. We're just talking about this in the UK's context.
Yeah, really. And I know that obviously at the moment the US has got quite a few because Tesla's been pushing them out, but again, they might not be everywhere. Across Europe, they are pushing them out, and there's quite a lot in the UK now. But even then, a lot of them aren't superchargers at the minute.
Yeah.
So... I'd say they've just put some up in our local town, haven't they?
Yes,
and I don't think they're superchargers. I think they're just
your standard
bog standard chargers,
like the one you get on your house, for example.
Yeah.
So the thing is, though, then we looked at the Tesla Model S, and something dawned on me. For the first time, I would buy the one which had a longer range but less power, because range matters.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. For me, it's a case of... And that is in a car where having a bigger engine, it wouldn't matter about the cost as such.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And I genuinely do believe that if manufacturers are going to lose a percentage of overall power but gain hugely in the amount of miles a car can cover on a single charge, you'll be able to shift them better, because that matters more than having that extra couple of percent power, in my opinion.
Okay, let's just use an example here. So the one we were going to use is obviously the cheapest one they do in terms of their model range, but this is the cheapest model. So Tesla Model 3, the long range one.
Yes.
It's 47 grand new, which... Obviously, to some people, that is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're comparing it to what it's going up against, maybe your BMW 3 Series and Audi A4s, you can easily spend that on one of them.
Yeah.
If you spec one up.
Yeah.
But the long range one has a range of 348 miles, which that's actually quite a lot.
Yeah.
And it's fine. It's a lot more than the Porsche. It's half the price of the Porsche. But it still does 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds and does 145 miles an hour.
Yeah, exactly. I believe...
Do you really need the extra half a second or so to 60 when you're going to be doing over 100 miles less?
Yes, you say, and the gap is even more significant when you get the Model S up against the Taycan, because they're boxing in the same ring as each other.
Yeah, actually, to be fair, I know the Model S is more a rival for the Taycan, and that it does have more range. But even if you go for the performance Model 3, which actually is just as fast 0 to 60 pretty much as the Taycan, and has 162, still does 329 miles of range.
Yeah.
Comparing to 270 in the Porsche.
Significantly more.
Yeah, and still less than half the price.
Yeah. I genuinely do believe that there will become a point, especially when we're in the electric car sort of era, where it will be a case of there will be enough power where people are looking up. That's more than enough. That's still an absolute weapon. But because of how significant it is for getting good range out of an electric car, you will go for ones which have good range.
Now, I'm assuming, obviously, the electric car is still very much in its infancy.
Oh, yeah.
Still very much so. So I have no doubt that manufacturers will, over time, figure out a way of getting both.
Yes.
So you'll spend more, so you might spend Porsche Taycan money, 100 odd grand or whatever, but you'll get a car that'll do, 200 miles an hour, but will also have a range of 400-500 miles as an example.
Yeah. But for now,
can you realistically do a really long drive unless you plan it down to the nut? Like if you're going out in a petrol car, do we plan a journey really?
No.
You just get in the car, drive until you need to fill up. There's petrol stations literally everywhere, pretty much. Especially on the motorway, you pull into the service station, fill up, 2 minutes, crack on your way.
Well, you think of the Taycan, for example. You think of how it's spec'd. It's like a Panamera in a lot of ways.
It is, yeah.
The brief it's going for is people will want to do decent journeys in that.
Yeah.
And the trouble is, with 280 miles total range, and that's in obviously the longest range one that they offer, You are limited. Obviously, they at the 280 roughly mile mark, they don't stand alone in that arena. Another electric car that we looked at relatively recently was the Audi e-tron.
Yeah.
We liked it, I feel.
We saw them before they started coming out, didn't we? We saw one at the Leeds dealership. And while, to me, it is essentially an Audi Q7 or Q8 in a nutshell. Just a fully electric one. Now, there's two different ranges depending on who was testing it. So one of them put an estimated range of between 222 and 259 miles, and another one said 204 miles.
So obviously the 259 mile upper echelon of those ranges came from the WLTP, which is the sort of measure that is used, I've seen used most often on these claims, to be honest. Probably because it gives you, I don't know, but looking at compared to the EPA claim above it of 204 miles, that is a better figure to use, probably.
Yeah.
So,
and just for those who don't know, the WLTP is the World Harmonised Light Duty Vehicle Test.
Okay.
And the EPA is the Environmental Protection Agency.
Is that America then?
I'm guessing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it is the US. So the range does vary massively between the two tests. So it'd be interesting to see
real world
what they're actually doing. Because I suspect, obviously, like if you're driving along with your lights on the radio going, you're
fully loaded
with people. I reckon you could get into the hundreds with that.
But let's just take the WLTP as read then and say that you are going to get the 259 miles of that upper echelon of what the e-tron can do. That puts you in the same boat as it does in the Taycan. Yeah. Taycan's probably got more performance than the e-tron, but you're still as limited as each other on where you can go in effect.
Yeah, you are. And while they say, I've heard a lot of people say this, just plan your journey and stop somewhere for a coffee and things like that. And we've mentioned it in the past, which, is fine. You can do that. But what if you are in a rush?
And not to mention as well, what if you are in a part of the world that doesn't have those facilities? Most places in the world do have petrol stations. It's been around long enough that it's so well entrenched into the world that petrol stations are usually available.
It's well over 100 years, isn't it? And I have no doubt this will end up like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but for now, I feel that, I imagine, range is very significant. And I imagine it will stay that way until either they develop technologies where you can increase range and performance at the same time without a knock-on to each other, or they get the range up to such a high level that it sort of just stops mattering in some respect. Because every electric car...
You can do 1,000 miles on one charge or whatever.
Exactly.
But,
so, that's just a little theory that I had, and I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, so I agree. I think they'll convert sort of outright power and speed into start looking at more range, because it is more important probably to the consumer, especially because when on earth are you ever going to do 165 miles an hour unless you're in Germany on the Autobahn?
Let's use as an example. We've talked about the F8 Tributo before, and we've talked about it in many different ways, such as whether people just think it's another evolution of the 488.
It definitely is.
Exactly. Yeah. But we've never mentioned how far it can go on a tank of fuel.
No.
I've never thought to even bother to ask that.
No.
However, when we talk about the Rimac Concept 2, or we talk about indeed any new electric car, we quote how far it can go on a single tank for every electric car we talk about.
Yeah, it's just the first thing that comes up, isn't it?
Exactly. It's the thing that comes into our mind.
Yeah. So I think I agree with you on that front. I think manufacturers are going to start changing the tone on this and start looking at more range than outright power. Because like you say, generally, most cities, roads and everything, most countries have speed limits. So you can't do 165 miles an hour. So bring all that performance down. And when you need not to 60 in 4 seconds or 3 seconds, it's just not.
Especially when you consider you can get yourself good performance in good handling setups, for example, and keeping the weight, the centre of gravity low. And, the thing is, as you say, you can only do so much on a public highway anyway, and the importance of range is much more significant for electric cars than it is for internal combustion engines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was another one we were just going to look at, which I think it might be a decent enough example of this. I think it'll be more of an affordable one. So the new VW ID3, is it called? It's coming out. Yeah. This is sort of what I'd consider a little hatchback from VW, which is sort of Golf size, I think.
Yeah, roughly. I get that impression as well.
Yeah, I've not seen one in the flesh to comment, but it looked from the people stood next to it and on pictures and things, it looks about Golfish size, which perfect. Golf's a very popular car. Fit a lot in it. Now this car isn't out yet. so these figures probably aren't solid, but this is from the VW website itself. They think there's 3 different battery options. The top one, which we'll talk about just for this example, will do 340 miles on a full charge.
Yes.
Which a lot of cars, even petrol cars, will do that comfortably. Obviously, ours does, as we found out, over 500. But 340 mile range for your average family hatchback.
Pretty good.
It's not bad, but a normal Golf will do a lot more than that.
Oh, yeah. But it's interesting how, again, when we were talking about this car, we gravitated to the range it could do. I don't even know how much power it produces.
I don't care.
I haven't actually looked. And that says a lot, because when I'm talking about internal combustion cars, like, say, the current Golf GTI, I'll look at, how does it compare against the Civic Type R or whatever? You know?
Or something like that. You look straight away at power. But in electric cars, I found myself doing the same thing. I genuinely don't really care.
No, but you know that the straight line pace of an electric car is usually quite good.
Yeah.
Because of the instant torque and everything about them. It just lends itself to having decent straight line pace usually. So yeah, that was some food for thought. So yeah. I think that pretty much covers it.
The next topic we were going to go on. So this one, you just asked me randomly the other day, didn't you? Just like, if you were driving around the world, what would you do it in? And we came up with a little idea. We did 2 cars. Which we think both would be good contenders for this.
So obviously the idea we came up with was it was literally a circumnavigation of the globe.
Yeah.
So that involves roads, but it also involves unbelievable off-roading as well.
You might be driving through the desert, you might be driving through a jungle, you might be going over some rocky terrain or through water or anything along those lines.
Or you could end up in a central city location as well. It's one of those.
Yeah, if you're going everywhere, you're going to be like, you don't have hotels in the middle of nowhere. You might stop at some point.
You might be camping.
Yeah, or you might be camping. So the first one we talk about, I think it's the less interesting of the 2.
Yes.
But it is well renowned for being indestructible.
Bomb-proof.
Yeah, bomb-proof, literally. So this one is the Toyota Hilux, or Hilux, depending on how you want to pronounce it. So the model we actually picked, for those of you watching, I'll just do a little summary I'll put up what we did and how we've spec'd it.
Yeah.
So it's the Toyota Hilux, and we've picked the Invincible X model, just because it sounded good, I think, mainly on that. But it did come with a few other things, like it's got a slightly quite high road clearance and things like that, which is good for rock crawling.
Yeah. Well, they called it Invincible, so I'm assuming it has its toughest sort of shell on it as well.
Yeah, and a lot of underneath is a bit more plasticky, so it doesn't matter if you dent it or smack it on a rock or things like that. So we also picked the 2.4 150 horsepower engine.
Yes.
Because I think the diesel one, they didn't really have a petrol option, but the diesel one with a manual gearbox, interestingly, not the automatic. Now, the reason I particularly picked the manual is not because I do actually prefer a manual than automatic, but from a lot of people I've seen in the past, off-roading particularly, especially tricky off-roading, sometimes actually better with a manual because you can be a lot more delicate.
There's also reliability and servicing.
Yeah, if your automatic goes wrong, you're just stuck. Whereas a manual, in many cases, you can drive it without a clutch.
Yeah,
you can crunch your gears and crash it, but you can. I've seen people do it. You can drive it.
Yeah.
Which, when you're stuck in the middle of nowhere, that might come in key.
It's more robust, and that is key if you're trying to circumnavigate the globe, I guess.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people do say, but none of the off-roaders now have manual gearboxes. Well, that is true, but 99% of the people don't take them off-road.
Or if they do, it's mild. We're talking about, obviously, in some circumstances, you'll be in horrendous blizzards trying to go up a mountainside. You're going to need it.
Yeah, which is great. The interior trim, for some reason, just a standard came with black leather, but that's pretty robust. You can wipe it down should you get muddy or anything like that. Yeah. We also did tick the option for the tow bar with the electric things on, like electric connection and things. Now, the only reason we put that on is you never know, you might need to tow something out of the way. Like I watched a video actually this morning by pure coincidence of a load of guys off-roading, and they used the towing winch to tow a log out the way of the road. Yeah. They got the rope around it and they hooked it onto the towing bracket and they just pulled the log out of the way.
Yeah.
Handy little thing to have should you need it, and also if you ever need to tow a trailer, it's there. We also picked the Leisure hardtop. Now, you thought this was a good idea just because for storage.
Yeah, exactly. It keeps the rain out of it. It just seems like an extra big Well, it just extends how much storage you can use, really, without it getting exposed to the elements.
Now, if we were doing this in real world, we'd probably put a roof tent on there as well, but they didn't have an option on the Toyota website for that, but you can buy those separately.
I might add, it's very expensive.
It is. But we were thinking as well, just out of, you could, in theory, if you were really, really stuck, sleep in the back.
You could, yeah. Absolutely.
If you're desperate, it's better than being outside.
Yeah.
And we also picked as well a storage box for the front deck.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, that was just for no other reason other than it's a slightly more secure option to chuck some stuff in where it's hidden out of view.
It's robust. It's secured down. Nothing will fall out of it. It seemed quite practical to me.
Yeah.
But again, chuffing expensive for a box.
Yeah, it was. It was £383 excluding VAT, which in the UK is 20%, so you can add 20% on that.
And the hardtop cover that we got was £1,465 excluding VAT.
Yeah, so you're adding about another 280 quid on there.
Yeah.
Give or take a few quid. Now, the total for this car came in at a pretty reasonable 32,983 quid.
Excluding VAT, so you can add 20%.
Oh, is that
yeah.
Oh, it is excluding VAT. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you add 20% onto that. Is that another £6,000? 32. I'm not good at instant quick maths, but yeah, so 10% of it would be 320 or 3. I can't know. I don't.
Either way, you'll be getting up to 40 grand. Won't you?
Yeah,
you're getting up to 40 grand.
Yeah, you're getting up to 40 grand there, roughly around about that. So yeah, it is a big car.
Oh yeah.
You have plenty of space in there to chuck a load of stuff in. It's well renowned for being indestructible, which I think is why the Taliban use it. Just had to throw that in there. But Toyota have actually been criticised for this on the news, saying like, hang on a minute, where are they all getting your cars from? But that's another story.
Yeah.
But they're obviously picking it for a reason.
Well, if most rugged cars find themselves into the most rugged corners of the world, I guess.
Yeah, Australian Outback, they always use Toyotas.
Yeah.
Obviously on Top Gear, they couldn't kill it. They put it in the sea, everything like that. I don't know how much fakes or how staged that was, but it did all right.
They collapsed the building under it, so...
Yeah, so, it looks like it could be pretty indestructible. So I think that would be a great place to start, and I think a lot of people would pick that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, again, one thing I will mention, obviously if you can do this, Toyota don't have this option from factory, but adding a snorkel and things like that, you would obviously do. Now, this is where it gets into the more exciting one for me. This is the creme de la creme.
Yes.
So, the new Land Rover Defender.
Yep.
Do you actually like the looks of these? From pictures?
I think now we've spec'd it up to the price we've spec'd it up to, and I prefer the long wheelbase look to the short wheelbase.
Yes.
I don't mind it.
Yeah. Now,
but granted, that's because
it is expensive.
Yeah.
We'll get onto that in a second. So when I first saw this in pictures, I actually didn't mind it. But now I've seen a lot of videos of it, I don't think pictures have done this any justice at all.
Right, okay.
I think, honestly, in the flesh and also in videos I've seen, I think it'll look fantastic. So yeah, I honestly think it'll look fantastic. And what we've done for this one in particular is because Land Rover offer everything on this car, don't they?
Yeah, everything. I think they said it was 170 different options you could
have
for it. Accessories.
Yeah, accessories, which is absolutely ridiculous. So the particular one we did was the 110X, which is the top model, so it starts at £77,000.
Yes.
Not cheap by any stretch, but you do get...
going around the world in it.
Yeah, you're gonna want everything. So again, for those of you watching, I will put a comprehensive list of the options that we've put on this car.
I think first thing to mention, though, is the engine that we spec'd, actually.
Yeah,
because the engine is wild. Obviously, it's a 400 brake horsepower, 6-cylinder, 3-litre.
Yeah, which power-wise, you're not going to be struggling there in any way, shape or form. Just, again, 220 grams per kilometre is not that bad for...
No.
Not that we're caring about that. So... we've got the big engine, which is going to pull us up big hills, tow you out of anything, pull trailers, do you name it, we've got that engine.
We have.
So, the options list. This is where it gets silly.
Yes.
Because while Land Rover obviously are renowned for being off-roading, I think they've really pushed this car and what you can get with it, and they're pushing it to more off-roading type things. So, they offer things like, the first option we got was like a wheel arch protection.
Useful.
Very useful. We picked that option because you never know if you're bashing around on rocks and trees or anything like that. That could come in very handy.
It stops, things getting damaged, which ideally is just what you want, really.
Well, yeah, it is. And the next one, again, what Toyota didn't offer was the raised air intake.
Again, wading through water, practical.
This is your snorkel. I think I can't remember.
You can probably get a snorkel for them, for sure. I mean, even if it's from a third party, someone
you can definitely do it. It's only a pipe at the end of the day, isn't it? But obviously Land Rover offer this from factory.
Yeah.
So you might as well get it integrated in so it's done properly as it's being built.
Mm-hmm.
No qualms with that. It's a very useful thing. So another thing we got as well was sort of the front and rear mud flaps for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Just while you're not going to be bothered that your car's getting dirty, you're going everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
it just stops some of the spray coming up, doesn't it? Which could be useful.
Yep.
We thought it'd be nice. It also adds to the rugged look of the car.
Exactly.
I think,
Yeah.
as well.
It's aesthetically as well. I think it's a good look.
That was more probably that than anything else. Another option we take out. There is loads. I'm not going to do all of them because
we'll do some highlights.
Yeah, there actually is way too many, but I'll put a list on for those watching. One of the interesting ones for me, which Land Rover offer, is the protective wrap.
Yes, that's very good, isn't it?
I don't know if any other manufacturers do that, other than perhaps Dacia with the black edition, which was just a black wrap on the car. But we think that was a great idea just because obviously it protects it from getting scratched. You can literally just peel it off and put a new one on should you require it.
Protects it and long term protects it from rust and
it shouldn't rust. It's aluminium.
Is it aluminium?
Yeah, it shouldn't rust, unlike old Land Rovers. But I think that's a really good idea to do it from factory.
Absolutely. I think the awning's useful. I think the waterproof awning's quite clever.
Yeah, an inflatable one as well. So we did take the option for the air compressor.
Yes.
And the inflatable awning. Obviously, I'm assuming that connects to the awning and blows it up.
Yeah.
I would assume. But that's just handy if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you've got nowhere to sleep, it just pops up little inflatable awning with your air compressor, boom.
Well, place to cook, place to just do whatever.
Shelter from the weather.
Shelter from the weather.
Yeah, which is a great idea. Again, the fact that they offer that from factory, they've obviously thought about it.
The portable rinse system.
Oh, yeah.
We really like that one.
Yeah, so that's obviously, if you're stuck without a shower, fair enough, it'll be cold, but it's a shower nonetheless.
Yeah.
Washing down boots, clothes, anything like that.
Yeah.
Really handy. I don't know why you wouldn't pick it, to be honest.
No.
Another one as well, which I thought was actually quite good, is the jumper cables.
Yeah.
Now, I know you can buy these extra, but Land Rovers are at the moment well renowned for not being the most reliable cars in the world, so you might need that. Other just more utilitarian stuff we think was a good idea just for going around the world is maybe something like your rubber floor mats.
Yes.
Because you're getting your big boots on it, obviously mud, things, everything like that. Just protect the interior.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we...
I think, as you said, some of the other stuff which I thought was particularly highlight, the winch accessory kit and the winch as well.
Yeah.
That's very useful, to be honest. And we also had the towing stuff as well. So we have the tow straps and the tow bar as well.
Yeah, which is, again, all useful stuff. And also with the exposed towing eyes as well, which I think you can use for... Yeah, I assume you can tow the car with that.
Right.
Because it's on the back and front. I'm assuming it was. We also selected, which I think everyone should have, is the sort of the roof rails, but the full one, so it goes side like horizontally and longitudinally. Is that the way you say it?
Yeah.
Which you obviously can chuck everything up there. You'd have your jerry cans full of your spare fuel. You can probably even put more spare wheels up there. We did also select, by the way, the full size spare wheel.
We did, and the cover.
And the cover to protect it. Yes, you don't get bashed around if you go in there. And one thing actually, which you picked this option, and I didn't think of it at the first. I thought it was just it has black wheel nuts. But you can get an option on the Land Rover for spare wheel nuts.
Yes.
20 of them, in fact. Which, if you lose one in the desert or the jungle or wherever you're going to be, you've got a spare
I just thought that was quite practical. And some of the other ones, which may be a little bit less practical, is the coat hanger.
No, but...
But this is a round the world trip.
Yeah, you need it for everything.
So if we roll up in London or whatever, we will be needing to put our clothes somewhere.
Yeah, if you get a nice suit or anything like that, if you're going anywhere nice on one of your random trips.
And we also have the click and work as well, so that you can do any paperwork that might be required in the car. Maybe filling out visas or whatever.
Yeah, as you're travelling along.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good idea. One thing we did do was the Wi-Fi with satellite connectivity.
Yeah.
Because satellite connectivity obviously is much better than your mobile plan because you can get signal pretty much anywhere.
Which is very practical.
Yeah, you're not reliant on a mobile mast or something. If you're in the middle of the Sahara Desert, for example.
You get stuck.
You need help. You've got a satellite sort of phone and connection on there. And also as well, it actually does software updates via satellite to the car.
Useful.
Which could be handy if there's a bug on the car and they send it out to you. Other random little bits and bobs we stuck on, which is just your standard stuff like your warning triangles, your first aid kits, anything like that. Just you're going to need them, really.
Yeah, we've got a list of that, the standard features.
And a tyre repair kits as well.
Yeah.
Because you don't know, do you? Where a lot of that stuff as well, I mentioned, it's in the Adventure Pack. So they offer that from factories called the Adventure Pack. You'll get a lot of that in there. So that, for me, I think would be, out of the two cars we chose, while it is significantly more expensive, coming to a total of £96,207, yes. I'm not sure if that's including or excluding VAT, but given it doesn't say...
It says on the road underneath it.
Oh, yeah, so, yeah. So it does, yeah. So that's so 96 grand compared to 40, while it's more than double. But you are getting a lot more car.
And I might add as well, obviously, when we put the comprehensive list up, we put over £9.5 grand worth of accessories on this.
Yeah, I think the total options came to £17,407.
Yes.
Which, in theory, a standard Land Rover is obviously excellent off-road, but you want to have everything on there just if you're going anywhere around the globe, don't you?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so, well, I think that is probably a good place to wrap it up. Those are our two options. Let us know in the comments or anything like that if there's anything you would take around the world or what and why, for an example. So I'll leave all the links below for social media as always. Get in touch if you have any ideas or you want to submit any questions or anything like that. We will always try and accommodate for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will be back next week for another episode.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, thank you very much.
See ya.
See you later, guys.